Columbus High's biology classes recently attended environmental awareness seminars. Advanced Communications Show will now present them to you. The first speaker is Tom Sanders from HDR Engineering. He will be speaking on the low-level nuclear waste plant in western Nebraska. The second speaker is Elwin Larson, also from HDR Engineering Incorporated. He will be speaking on solid waste. Also, recently, the biology students took a field trip to the wastewater treatment plant, where they saw how our wastewater is treated.
Place ever gets built, or perhaps if it gets built, there could well be further debates and voting on whether it ever gets used. And so it's important that you start learning about stuff like that. You know, they mention a couple things there, and the one that I wanted to just highlight here was the selection of Nebraska out of the 5 states, and the issue of 30 years before it's full and so forth. And the concept that the 5 states have put in place is that we will deal with low-level waste for 150 years. That's the mission statement of the compact, to deal with a disposal place for the next 150 years. So, as you can imagine then with the math, they've decided that each state during that 150 years will implement a facility within their boundaries that will dispose of stuff for 30 years. And so in the beginning, it was a political policy decision made by our regulators to have Nebraska be the first host state. Then, with regard to selecting the site, as the video showed, multiple sites were looked at, really more than 3 by far. It just started in showing you there. 3 then were studied in depth, studied by people going out there. There was a lot of holes drilled in the ground, a lot of exotic surveys, ground penetrating radar and electromagnetic surveys, a lot of pretty fancy stuff done to characterize those sites and decide what kind of geology is there, what kind of groundwater is there, and so forth. On the other side of the coin, more down-to-earth things like, is there a decent highway to get there? There were probably some very excellent sites as far as geology and environment go, but if they happen to be in the middle of nowhere, you can't very well get trucks there safely. So, was there good transportation there? Was there land available? Were resources that would be needed to run it, labor pool and that kind of, all those kinds of things went in, became criteria, rating scores that each site got, and ultimately it boiled down then to the Boyd County site in northern Nebraska. So that's a little bit about that.
What we'd want you to do is continue to throw it away into the garbage. Some states, like Iowa, have banned yard waste from going to a landfill. So that ban is forcing residents to either flip it and leave it on the lawn or force the community to enact a separate collection program. I might just say that we as Americans have been just too lazy about our garbage. And many states and cities have found that citizens, I mean, we can stand here today and we can talk about it today, but I probably won't motivate you to, all of you, to go out and recycle. And you may not have within your power the capability to put all of the facilities in place that need to have a meaningful recycling program in Columbus. So what cities and states are doing is they're mandating, they're putting laws into place that the city has to reduce 25% by recycling by a date 5 years from now. Some communities have even gotten recycling goals of 50% set for the next 10 years. So all of the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to be getting ready to meet those goals. And so the community has to begin its planning, how are they going to get this stuff separated and collected, how are they going to meet those goals. But obviously, we're not going to be able to recycle all of the garbage, but we'll be able to make a significant dent. We'll be able to, if we achieve 50% recycling, we've extended the life of the landfills twice. So if we have a 20-year landfill, if we have a landfill out there that took 20 years to fill, we will have reduced the volume to where that landfill now will last the next generation 40 years. So that's what all this talk about recycling is about. And let me get to some of the items I've got here. One of the things that we're trying to do in recycling is we're trying to get the products recovered and get them granulated or break the fibers down to where then new products are made. Just to give you an example, this container contains plastic bottle caps, like you find on the top of this plastic laundry jar. They happen to be all different colors. When they're extruded into, run through an extruder, then we have this little flower pot that comes out. It's this, strangely enough, this different color combination ends up with this gray color. And then this is what we would call 100% recycled product. It is made from just scrap plastic. So these resins go in to make this new product. Now that same type of philosophy can be employed with these plastic jugs, for example. This happens to be a jug, and if you start exploring these containers, you'll find that almost all of your major suppliers of these types of jugs, main brand, this is a Procter & Gamble, and they're all labeled. And this happens to be high-density polyethylene, and it happens to have a pigment in it, and that pigment gives it its color, and it is a very distinctive color that Procter & Gamble wants.
This is the lab where they test the water as it comes into the storage facilities. This is the place where they store the water and take samples from it. The water is piped in here first. Each of these pipes represents a part of the city. Parts of the city each put their water into these pipes. This is where the water is piped out to a storage tank after samples are taken of it. This is the first storage tank. It's right next to the main building. This is another series of storage tanks. The water is aerated here so that it can go out into the river. The debris is skimmed off. You can see the rods on top of the water. This skims the debris off of the top of the water. Another tank where they aerate the water before it goes out into the river. This is the building where they press the sludge from the water to get all the rest of the water out. This sludge then goes to any agricultural farms.